Shalom, everybody, and welcome back. I do hope that many of you have been here in our previous class. And Sarah, just tell me if you can see the full screen, the full presentation, so I know that we are okay.
Looks great.
Yeah. So I'm starting with a slide that shows the table of content. Hi, Stuart. Wow, thank you for joining us. Relax, there is still some time. And so back to the general audience, I'm reintroducing Stuart to you as our reader in English, and you will see that happening very, very shortly. So our session, when you say know what you mean, the two sessions were divided along that interesting Israeli divide that Israel, or the Hebrew language rather, does not tell apart a song from a poem. They're both shirim. But I did for our sessions run in English. And in the first session that was on Tuesday, we looked at poems and we tried to explore different gender issues through those poems in different periods, different aspects. Our session today is very, very different. We are now going literally into the world of very popular songs, and we are therefore looking at lyrics, not so much poetry, but the content will be extremely interesting. I need to be honest with you, and I will make a remark that people rarely do, but I will want to make it because it's important. I want to tell you how old I am, in case I didn't tell you that in previous sessions. I'm 74 this year. Why am I making a point to tell you that? Because when you look at gender topics, especially in popular music, in popular art, cinema, theater, etc., time, period, age count a lot. And I'll repeat that twice so there is no mistake, I belong to the generation that used to love the songs that I will be reading with you very critically today. I sang them when I was a teen. I sang them when I was a young mother. I sang them even when I was not so young a mother. And I thought there was nothing wrong with them. And they were part of my culture. They were part of the Israeli atmosphere and ambiance. And what we are doing today is really a retrospective view. We will try to look at a certain development in Israeli popular songs, describing women, attitudes to women, attitudes between men and women. And I know that some of you, with the perspective that we have to do today, with the Me Too generation, you will think they are terrible. So I'm telling you ahead of time. I think so too. I know that with today's minds and ears, they are terrible. And yet I want for us to look at them because not that long ago, they were considered 100% kosher. So let me start by showing you a few pictures on my slides. And my attempt and my program for today is to listen to many singers, but we will look at the lyrics first. And when you say no, what do you mean? Gender in Israeli poetry and popular songs. We have reached the popular songs. This is what we shall do today. And that we have reviewed already. We are in this section. And we start by looking at the images in the center of our slide. And there are two things I need you to notice. There is a picture of a young woman with a hairstyle of the early 60s. So by me, because we are talking about my relationship now to this kind of songs, this is when I am in high school. And she's already a soldier, And her picture appears on the front page of one of the military magazines, the Machane Nachal. You can see the large 3 letters of the word Nachal, which if you know Hebrew but not very well, you maybe will understand that that means a stream or a river, but actually it's an acronym for a particular unit in the military, the acronym Nun Chet Lamed Noar Chalutzi Lochem, which means pioneering combat youth. She's a soldier of that. Her picture appears on the magazine. Why? Because she happens to be called Dinah Barzilai. First name Dinah, last name Barzilai. Below, you will see a picture of performing artists, singers, actors. And they belong to Lahakat HaNachal, the Nachal singing troupe. There was a time in Israel when every major unit in the military, the Marine, the Air Force, etc., had their own musical troupe. They were extremely popular. From them developed later, these were the places where young people during their military service started becoming well-known artists, musicians, singers, etc., and later to be part of the civil or the civilian scene of art and culture in Israel. And many of the big names that we learn to admire, like Arik Einstein and such, have started their career in one of these military troops. And the most famous of all is Lahakat HaNachal, is the Nachal musical troupe. And they have this absolutely successful and popular song called Dinah Barzilai. I'll read a little bit of the Hebrew to you. Actually, I do not need to read it. I know it by heart, to my shame, because it was so popular, and I have sung it so many times that I literally know, but I will look at the text as I read it to you. What is the scene? We are in a military base, not a combat unit, just a regular unit with the offices, you know, where they keep all the files of all the soldiers who serve in that unit. And there is a bunch of soldiers, and when I will let you hear the singing, you will see that they are all guys, and they are bored to death, and their commander went to have lunch. Wow, this is the time to have a great time. And how are they going to have a great time? They will look at the personal files of other soldiers. Yes, this is what the song is all about. It's about the bunch of soldiers who, out of boredom, have the chutzpah to open personal files and have a good time by reading them. And there is one of the files that they prepare over any else, and that's the folder, the file, the personal file of Dinah Barzilai. And there is a famous writer in Israel, poet and lyric writer, Chaim Hefer, a well-known name. I have taught many of the works he had written, who is actually creating a song in which the topic is soldiers looking through the personal file of a soldier woman and singing about all the personal details. So we will read as much as you can take, because it's really way beyond what we consider proper today. Stuart, I'm going to do about 2 verses, and then I'll hand it over to you, okay, for the English. I'm doing the first 2 in Hebrew. And those of you who can sing, because you belong to that age group, because you're Israelis or former Israelis or whatever, are more than welcome very shortly to sing along. סגן גד רפאלי הלך לאכול צהריים, ואנחנו שלושתנו נשארנו לבד במשרד. ארונות של ברזל, ערימות של תיקים, וסביבנו אלפי ילקוטי השירות. כן, אנחנו היטב מכירים את כולם, לפי התפסים בילקוט השירות. מכירים את כולם, אך מכל ילקוטי השירות שהכרנו, רק אחד אל ליבנו נגע. I'm done with the first two verses, and I'm asking you, Stuart, to lead us through the English. I'll be stopping you occasionally, as it is my custom.
Dinah Barzilai, 496351. Dinah Barzilai, color of the eyes, blue, color of the hair, chestnut, 160 centimeters tall, weight, 58 kilograms. Dinah Barzilai, 496351. Lieutenant Gad Raffaeli went off to have lunch. The three of us remained, bored in the office. Closets made of metal, piles of files, and around us thousands of service folders. Yes, we know all of them well, all the forms in the service folders. We know everyone, we know them all. But of all the service folders we know, only one touches our hearts. Dinah Barzilai, 496351. Eye color, blue. Hair color, chestnut. Height, 160 centimeters. Weight, 58 kilograms. Dinah Barzilai, 496351.
Okay, let us stop here for a moment. So I already used the word chutzpah and whatever, and how this would be totally not be acceptable today. But at the time, this is a popular song. So everybody knows the number. I still remember it to this day. Anybody will say Dinah Barzilai 496351. I can repeat it like most people of my generation and even somewhat younger. And then you go through the color of the eyes and the color of the hair and the height and the weight and everything. And it's all a topic to sing about, to joke about. Now, after the song is composed, they actually go through the military and they check to see if indeed there are women soldiers who are called Dinah Barzilai. And actually they found 4 of them. And one of them agreed to appear on the cover page of the newspaper. Can you imagine then the joking around it and how much she weighs? And it will come to even more intimate details. So let us continue, because they continue to explore the file. Lieutenant Gan Raffaeli.
Lieutenant Gan Raffaeli went off to have lunch, and we, with Dinah, remained alone in the office. We never saw you, never, ever. Yet your image rises from the deserts of files. She was born on the 20th of the 8th, 1940. It was most probably a summer day. Grapefruits in the vineyard, figs in the orchard, a high school education, father's name Ephraim. She played the piano for 6 years. Lieutenant Gad Raffaeli went off to have lunch. Here on the form it says that you renounced family support.
Will you stop for a moment? Will you stop for a moment? Even that, I mean, you could go into the file, and beyond the fact that she comes from sort of a comfortable family, she had piano classes, high school education. If she was born in 1940, then the scene, not necessarily when this is written, it could be written later, but it must be 58 or 59 because she is in the military, okay? And the picture painted is probably a very Ashkenazi background. We'll come to the issue of prototyping Ashkenazi and Mizrahi women. And it can go even to the details of whether she needed or did not need family support. And they can continue with that. And let us continue on my second slide of this song. Your heartbeat.
Your heartbeat when sitting is 80, and the bust size is 93.
Okay, stop again for a minute. So when I said it's going to become worse, this is what I meant. That it really goes into details that I cannot but wonder, how did we ever think that that was funny, that that was fun to sing? Let's conclude and then we'll listen to it.
Your sports interest is swimming. If only we were swimming by you, laughing in the waves and laughing on the sand. You had diphtheria when you were little, and your physical fitness is fine. Dinah Barzilai, 496351. Eyes color blue, hair color chestnut. The height is 160 centimeters. weight 58 kilograms, Dinah Barzilai, 496351. Lieutenant Gad Raffaelli went off to have lunch. The time is 1, and any minute he's due to return. You received a reprimand on the 8th of the 4th, but we know the sergeant's fault. The personal grade in discipline is B. The general opinion is that you're perfectly fine. We'd still be holding the folder for hours, but the lieutenant is back, already finished lunch, and he too is interested in your file.
Thank you. I think that will do. And let me go back to the previous slide where I have the link to the song, and we will be listening to a little bit. This is obviously a very old recording from the original show, so just bear with me. I'm just stopping to check whether you can both see the clip and listen to the music.
We hear the music, but I think we still see the slides. You have to switch which page. Yeah, you need to switch which page you're sharing on your screen share.
So let me try and do this again. And if not, I have still no picture.
If you try closing your screen share and then reopening it and selecting YouTube
No, I know what to do. I know what to do.
Yes, still no picture.
Okay. All right. I know exactly where I am going. Let me just
perfect.
Check. Just bear with me for a sec, and I'm with you now. Is it any better?
Yes.
It's perfect.
Okay, let's go.
סגן גד רפאלי הלך לאכול צהריים ואנחנו שלושתנו נשארנו לבד במשרד ארונות של ברזל, ערימות של תיקים וסביבנו אלפי ילקוטי השירות כן אנחנו היטב מכירים את כולם לפי הפרטים בילקוט השירות מכירים את כולם אך מכל ילקוטי השירות שהגענו אחד לליבנו נגע דינה ברזילי 496351 צבע עיניים כחול צבע שיער אלמוני הגובה 160 סנטימטר משקל 58 קילוגרם דינה ברזילי 496351 סגן גד רפאלי הלך לאכול צהריים כאן בטופס כתוב שביצעת סביבה משפחתית והדופק שלה ב-87 בהיקף החזה הוא 93 האיכות הספורטיבי שלה הוא שחייה הלוואי והיינו שוחים
I think that this will do for now, and let us go back to our PowerPoint presentation to continue our conversation. So this is where we have been. I just would like to mention to you that many, many years later, there is a troop of young women soldiers who created a mock male version of this, and girls talking about all the detailed description of a guy. But this is like very now. It did not belong to the period. I just wanted you to notice that there is awareness in Israel, and it is not acceptable anymore to think that it is fun and games and wonderful to sing about all the intimate details of a young soldier who does not even know that her file is being explored like that. So put this as one break because we are going to a much more serious affair. And we are looking at the song that I decided to take the title of for the title of my session, the 2 sessions rather. So it's called Ksheat Omeret Lo, when you say no. I am going to read the first verse, ask Stuart to read the English, and we'll be stopping him a lot. Before I do that, I want again a word of precaution. I remember this from my high school days. I thought it was a totally appropriate song. It was part of the atmosphere for girls to be expected to say no, and for guys to be expected not to take it seriously. What bothers me is the person who wrote the lyrics for this, Daniel Magor, who had written lyrics and poetry that is central in Israeli culture. And we will see how he realized the harm that his song had done. We will talk about that as times go by, and we understand that when you say no, there is no question what you mean. But we are not yet there. We'll come to that as we approach our times. For now, we are in the early 60s, and the question is, כשאת אומרת לא, למה את מתכוונת? למה את מתכוונת כשאת אומרת לא? האם הלא הוא לא, הוא באמת? אולי הוא רק אולי, אך לא כעת? או שהלא הוא רק עוד לא? אולי הוא או, אולי הוא בו? כי את אומרת לא כל כך בכן, שהוא נשמע לי עוד יותר מזמין מכן. I know it's horrible. Let's read the English.
When you say no, what do you mean? What do you mean when you say no? Is the no really no? Or may just perhaps not now? Or maybe the no is just not yet? Maybe it is either, maybe it is come, because you're saying no so charmingly that it sounds more inviting than yes to me.
Will you please stop here? I think that all these options that the lyric writer, the poet, Daniel Magor, had given the male voice, the male singers here, are actually the cliche of what we never want to happen these days. But these were totally legitimate at the time, considered funny, considered humorous, and as I told you, it gets worse. So let's go to the second verse, and again, I will be stopping you.
When you say no, I do not know anymore, confused and crazy when you say no. For if I say she doesn't really want to, maybe tomorrow you'll say, he's just a nerd. Is this a man? He's just a minor. He hears no and believes it. If I go away, you may say, what a pity. If I stay, you could say, a villain.
Okay, another classic cliche. Girls really do not mean no. And if, God forbid, I, the guy, take their no for a real no, it reflects on me. I am not a real man if I believe the no said by a woman, by a girl. Let's continue. When you say no, when she says no.
When she says no, what does she mean? What does she mean when she says no? Is it an absolute no or just a temporary no? Maybe it's okay, but not right now. Maybe it's really come on already. If they only said yes or no, it would be very boring. When you say no, what do you mean? What are you begging for when you say no?
Okay, let us stop here, because we need to see what caused this shift. Because when you say no, lema at mitkavenet in Hebrew, throughout the whole song, until we reach the last verse. When the mitkavenet, mean, turns into mitchanenet, begging. So that's a step further. You actually say no, but you are begging for something else. And Daniel Magor will say in an interview that he did not mean it. He did not include that word. And then the director of a show, a woman, said to him, you cannot repeat so many times mitkavenet. It's boring. Why don't add another word, maybe begging? And he recalls having said to her, are you serious? Already then, in the 60s. And he said, yeah, who cares? It's just for fun. So this word, which makes this even worse, slips in through the intervention of actually the woman director of the show. Let us conclude.
Because if you really do not want anything, just say, go away and be done with. Say enough or go away. Just do not say no, because you're saying no so charmingly that it sounds more inviting than yes to me.
Okay, let us listen to כשאת אומרת לא. It will take me a minute, but we will get there. Not to worry. There are a few renditions, and I want to show you the one when you have these two very famous artists, Gidi Gov and Yoram Gaon, sing it. Are we good? See and hear?
Looks perfect.
Okay.
כשאת אומרת לא, למה את מתכוונת? למה את מתכוונת? כשאת אומרת לא, האם הלא הוא לא הוא באמת? אולי הוא רק אולי אך לא כעת, או שהלא הוא רק עוד לא, אולי הוא או אולי הוא כי את אומרת לו כל כך בחן, שהוא נשמע לי עוד יותר מזמין מכן. כשאת אומרת לו, היא כבר לא יודע, מבולבל ומשתגע. כשאת אומרת לו, היא אומר היא לא רוצה ממש, אולי מחר תכריזי הוא חלש. זה גבר זה סתם קטיש, שומע לו מאמין לי, אלך אולי תאמרי חבל, אם אשאר אולי תגידי מנוול. כשהיא אומרת לו, למה היא מתכוונת? למה היא מתכוונת? כשהיא אומרת לו, האם זה לא כזה בכלל, או שהלא הוא רק זמני בלבד? אולי הוא טוב, אך לא עכשיו, אולי זה הוא בעצם, נו! אך אם היו אומרים רק לא וכן, אז מה בכלל היה נשאר פה מעניין? שקצת אכפת, הנה התאהבתי, למה התעצבנתי, בואי לאהוב, שיהיה לי יפה. כשאת אומרת לו, למה את מתכוונת? למה את מתחננת? כשאת אומרת...
Okay, this is where I wanted you really to hear the mitchanenet. What are you begging for when you say no? That was the word that I found so problematic. Not then, now. Okay, years go by and our societies change. But before that, something very dramatic has to happen. And I found today, actually, it wasn't in my original PowerPoint, a New York Times article about an event that happened in Israel in 1992. So that's quite a while ago. There was a trial going on after a rape that happened in a kibbutz, in Kibbutz Shomrat in Western Galilee, where a group of boys had systematically raped one of the girlfriends in their group in the kibbutz for 3 consecutive days. It took a while until she and her family summoned the courage to complain. There was a whole series of trials because the regional court have acquitted the boys. And how did it happen? It so happened that the lawyer for the defense, when he was questioning the girl, he asked her whether she refused, whether she said no. And she said, yes, I did say no. And then he used the line from this song. But when you say no, what do you actually mean? We know that. So a line from this Daniel Magor song served to acquit or to help to acquit 3 rapist boys in a kibbutz. It later on went on to the Supreme Court, where the judgment was reversed and they were found guilty. But this took years. So let us look now at 2 additional texts that are extremely important. This is Judge Justice Cheshin from the Supreme Court. Justice Cheshin in his final verdict. I'm doing the Hebrew, let me do the English as well. לא הוא לעולם לא, ואין לו שהוא כן, ואין עיוור פיקח, ואין שיכור פיקח. אין חכם טיפש, ואין ותרן עיקש. אין שחור שהוא לבן, ואין לילה שהוא יום. לא הוא לא, השופט חשין משפט שומרת. Okay, Stuart, why don't you do the English if you don't mind? Can you see it on the screen?
Yes. No is always no. There is no no which is yes. There is no seeing blind, no sober drunk, no stupid smart man. There is no stubborn indulgent, no white, black, nor day that is night. No is no.
Justice Cheshin in the Shomrat rape trial. As a result of that, Dan Al-Magor went back and rewrote a stanza for the song. I'm doing the Hebrew. It will be your turn very shortly, Stuart, to read us the English. כשהיא אומרת לא, לזה היא מתכוונת. לזה היא מתכוונת כשהיא אומרת לא. לכן הלא שלה סופי, מוחלט, רק היא קובעת, לא שום בית משפט. אז אל תהיה לי תרנגול ואל תהיה חכם גדול, היא לא רומזת כן או אולי או בו, כשהיא אומרת לא, היא מתכוונת לא. English, please.
When she is saying no, this is what she means. It is what she means when she is saying no. Therefore, her no is final, determined. She alone decides, not any court. So do not be a rooster. Do not be a smart one. She is not hinting yes or perhaps nor come on. When she is saying no, she means no.
Okay. I thank you very much. Now, I want you to be aware of a couple of things here. The discrepancy in time. The song is created in the early 60s and is as popular as you can imagine. The rape is the late 80s. It is still used in the first trial. A line from the song is used by the lawyer for the defense. It's only in 92 that Justice Cheshin will reverse the verdict and Daniel Magor will rewrite his song. 30 years in between the two for that change to happen. And here you see a group of a cappella women singers who are now oftentimes in their repertoire singing the new version of the song by Daniel Magor. So I think this is a good moment for us to stop for a moment, don't you think? And to maybe allow you, Sarah, to share with me some of the comments or questions that came up.
Great. So we have some wonderful questions, and if people have more questions, please submit them in the Q&A. The first question came in regards to the Dinah Barzilai song and asks whether you think it was the content of the song or really just the fun, catchy melody that captured people's enthusiasm and made it so popular, and whether it's really useful to judge ourselves in hindsight.
No, I don't think it is useful to judge ourselves in hindsight. I do think it's useful to look at the development in our culture and to recognize that we did have a period like that. I think it was popular because of the atmosphere of the time, because it was absolutely acceptable to do things like that, because we thought it was sort of funny to talk about her weight and her, other measurements and so on and so forth. No, I'm not judging hindsight. I'm just putting in front of you a narrative of a development of how gender issues used to be addressed. I showed you Dinah Barzilai that was never changed. If it is sung, by the way, it had disappeared. It's not sung anymore. But those of us who know then will still know the number and so on. Then I added, if you say no, to show you the true development. And if I say that I do not want to judge hindsight, but I have to when I look at if you say no. Because if that line was used in a trial to make the victim of a rape responsible because her no could mean other things but no, then who am I to say you cannot judge hindsight when Justice Cheshin said you could, and you had to, and you had to reverse, and Daniel Magor had to change the song. You have to recognize development. You have to recognize things that need to be set right, and this was not right.
So we got a number of questions and comments about whether there's something particularly Israeli going on here, or whether this is a worldwide phenomenon. So one voice chimed in and said that there was something here that felt connected to a particular kind of Israeli Schwitzer male ethos. Another pointed out that we have a song from roughly a similar period in America, Baby It's Cold Outside. Similar, yeah. Exactly. So just wondering what you think here is human and what you think here is Israeli.
I think that the military background in the first song is very Israeli. It's very, very Israeli. And I keep saying the chutzpah of these guys, going through the files and picking up whatever, etc. And for somebody to think that this is a legit theme to write a song about, very Israeli to me. But the general attitude to women, totally universal. Totally universal, absolutely. Yeah, and Baby It Is Cold Outside is always the example that everybody brings to my attention when I teach if you say no. Okay?
That makes sense. We have a bunch of questions about whether there's similar music objectifying men in that period, and some particular interest in where people can find the updated female version of Dinah Barzilai.
Okay, so I think, Sarah, that I can put a file together with the links. Dinah Barzilai was never, yeah, that one, yeah, I will look for it. And I can give you maybe a list, I think, of the URLs, including a beautiful interview with Daniel Magor and at how shocked he was when that sentence was used in the trial, way before the final verdict. I think those of you who, it has no subtitles, so only the Hebrew, but those of you who can take advantage of that, I think it's a good idea to do. But if you just, people who are comfortable in Hebrew online can go to YouTube and go like Dinah Barzilai, new version or something like that, Girsach Hadashah, and they will find it easily. Okay.
But your sense is that there aren't similar songs from the period objectifying men.
I can tell you something funny. You know the number, 4963551, I cannot say it in English, but the people will get it. When the song was written, there was still not yet a soldier with that serial number in the military. It only happened a few years later.
Okay.
And when that happened, the person who got this number was a guy. It was a young man who got the number 4963551. Actually, Yossi knew him personally, and my husband. So you cannot imagine how much fun he was made of because he had to go through his military service with that number.
So I have two more questions, which I hope you'll answer. One is whether any of these singers, as attitudes progressed, faced any backlash or response from the broader society?
They must have. Both of them, although they are well over 70, Gidi Gov and Yoram Gaon, are still active performers. I assume they must have, but the only one I really know about who faced it and took responsibility was Daniel Magor. So I do not have any particular concrete event to show you where either Gidi Gov or Yoram Gaon or any of the others faced their connectedness to a song like this. But we will come in the next one to another one when I can give you an example. Okay? But do you have any more questions?
So a final question for now from Marcia Falk, who says that she's heard Arik Einstein defend songs like Kishat Bocha at Lo Yafa by saying that they're parodies or they're supposed to be humorous. Do you think that any of these songs were meant to be ironic or were they meant to be taken seriously?
I do not remember any irony. I think that they were dead serious. Women were not, you really were told that if you will weep, your eyes will get red, you will not be beautiful, you'll have wrinkles around your eyes and all that. We actually were raised like this. I belong to that generation. It was not funny. It was not humorous. It was not ironical. It may be used in an ironic way today, but not at the time. This is the hindsight question. And what I really hope for is to show you the development, because I will show you change before we leave today.
Great. Yalla.
Yalla, let's go. Okay. Okay, so I'm going to find these girls from, I think it's called the Carmel Success or something like that. You can find them. And we are going to the next one. So the person on my slide, there's a person and there are a few objects. And we are going to talk about a very well-known Israeli song that is called the Waltz for a Nature Protection. Waltz להגנת הצומח. Both lyrics and music composed by Naomi Shemer, a very famous poet, lyric writer, musician, among the many, over 1,000 songs that she had left us with when she passed away was Yerushalayim Shel Zahav and many other very famous ones. This is a very particular one. It's from the mid-60s again. And I need to tell you something about the history of the State of Israel in the 60s, beyond the obvious that we know, the Six-Day War and so on. Israel has beautiful wildflowers. And it was the custom and the habit of many of us, myself included as a child, to consider that it was a wonderful way to spend a free day, in my case, since I'm not observant, a Shabbat day, to go out in nature and pick the wildflowers in season. It was the thing to do. So much so that we have depleted many of the flowers. In comes the Society for the Protection of Nature, and they managed to pass a law for the protection of both flora and fauna, the wildlife and the flowers of Israel. And bear with me for a moment. And a beautiful poster is created. You can read the title yourselves. It is in Hebrew, but in English, Protected Wildflowers. And you can see those in schools and in offices. And there was a huge educational activity teaching children. And you know what? Among the many things that Israel wanted to educate its citizens for or about, this was probably the most successful one. We tried to educate people to stand in line properly. We tried to educate them not to drop cigarette butts on the beach. None of it was extremely successful. The protection of flowers really did it. Kids will know what they are supposed not to touch and not to pick. And you can note on the bottom of the poster that I showed you that the inscription, Tse lanof ach al tiktof, in Hebrew it rhymes. It means go out into nature, but do not pick the flowers. And you can see that on both sides, it says the same in Amharic and in Russian. So this is your indication that these posters were also used in ulpanim to educate new immigrants. Naomi Shemer composes a song called the Waltz for the Protection of Nature. And for many, many a year, to this very day by some people, many people assume that this is a song about the need to protect the flowers. And indeed, the title tells you as much. So why don't we, I will read a little bit of the Hebrew. I will ask Stuart to read to us the English. And then I will raise the question with you, if you too think that this is a song about the protection of flowers and animals. ולס הגנת הצומח. כבר פורחים נרקיסים בשמורות הטבע. מרבדים נפרסים בשפלת החוף. כלנית וקרקום אלף גון וצבע, והחוק שאומר, כאן אסור לקטוף. רק עליי אין החוק משגיח. רק עליי איש אינו שומר. לו היו לי עלי גביע, אז היה מצבי אחר. Let us look at the English. Will you, Stuart, read it for us, please?
Nature Protection Waltz. Daffodils are blooming in nature reserves. Fields of green are spreading in the coastal plain. Anemones and crocus, thousand shades and colors, and the law that says it is forbidden to pick. I alone am not protected by law. It's only me who has no guard. If only I had some sepals around me, I would be in much better shape. Rare birds are already nesting in rocks and mountains. Rare trees are all kept aside. Scared gazelles are gazing at the sign that claims explicitly you cannot hunt. I alone am with no sign yet, not even a fence around me. If only I was, let's say, a reindeer, I would be in a much better shape. Hey, sir, watch out. Don't you touch the iris. Mountain tulips are out of reach. Every hill located near a city has protected nature fields, all marked and sealed. So sometimes I'm thinking it would be much better if I was a daffodil or a cyclamen, or even a regular scilla. I would be in a much better shape. Just look what is happening to me on the way. Every passerby grabs, picks, makes a wreath. Had I been a wild beast or a flower, I would be in a much better shape.
Thank you, Stuart. So I think one would need to be deaf or blind or totally not with it in order to really think that this is a song about the protection of nature. Look at what Naomi Shemer has done. She indeed sings about the need to protect the flowers. And the different verses of the song will talk about animals, and in the next one about birds, and in the third one about the iris, etc., etc. But the refrain, the chorus, with slight changes from one example to the other, repeats the voice, a narrator voice. I alone am not protected. I alone am with no sign yet. So sometimes I'm thinking it would be much better if I was a daffodil. Just look at what is happening. So intertwined between the verses about the need to protect flowers and birds, etc., is an I voice who says, yeah, we have become very good in protecting nature, but who is that I? Now, before I go further with this, we will do two things. We will first of all look at the pictures that I have put on the screen for you to show you that you can see renditions of this song, like on the upper right-hand side picture, where indeed the singers will make a presentation that will let you think that this is about flowers. Those of you who are into Israeli folk dancing may know that there is a dance to this song by Naomi Shemer. And young women will perform it, you know, with floating skirts, etc., all beautiful about life and nature and flowers. So let us first of all listen to it for a bit, and then we will continue in our talking about it. I'm wondering which one I want to take. I think I'll this one.
כן, אז כמו שכבר הבנתם, נעמי שכתבה כמה משירי הטבע היפים ביותר בעברית, אכן אהבה את הטבע מרחוק.
So this is a presentation where the song had moved from the level of the military troops for which Naomi Shemer indeed wrote it, to it being presented by the Philharmonic, with an introduction that explains what the song is all about, okay? So let me take you just to the song rendition. Can you, by the way, see and could you hear?
Yep, it's perfect.
כבר פורחים נרקיסים בשמורות הטבע, מרבדים נפרסים בשפלת החוף, כלנית וחרקום, אלף גון בצבע, וחוק שאומר כאן אסור לקטוף. רק עליי אין החוק משגיח, רק עליי איש אינו שומר. הסלע, אילנות נדירים נשמרים לחוט, איילות נבהלות מסתכלות בשלט, בו כתוב בפירוש שאסור לצוף. רק עליי עוד לא שמו שלט, מסביב אין לי כל גדר, לו הייתי נאמר הילד אז היה מצבי אחר.
Okay, we will go back to the PowerPoint presentation in order to continue this. Just a moment. Okay, so two things that need to be said. When Naomi Shemer was in much later years, she composes this in '67. The first rendition is done by her and two of her sisters, and the song doesn't catch any popularity. It's only about a year later that the Nachal singing troupe, the very one from Dinah Barzilai, picks it up with Yardena Arazi, now a very famous singer that started her career in Lahakat Nachal as the soloist. And Naomi Shemer instructs her. There is a clip video showing how she tells her how this needs to be sung, that people understand that she indeed needs protection. In the interview, when she's asked what made her write this song, she said, I used to visit in military bases where I could see how disrespectfully and how harassed young soldier women were, and sometimes very next that beautiful poster, you know, of the flowers that need to be protected. The story that I like most to repeat of Naomi Shemer's interviews about it is connected to the last verse. כל אחד עובר, חוטף, כותף, קולע, לוזר. Every passerby grabs, picks, makes a wreath. And when asked about this, Naomi Shemer honestly said that after '67, when the whole country, you know, after the Six-Day War, was in such a euphoria, and officers and soldiers were on top of the world, it translated into a terrible behavior towards young women soldiers. And indeed, this every passer-by, she said what she meant is every officer can go by and grab and take and make a wreath. It's a very painful statement, but Naomi Shemer did not hesitate to repeat it. And she tells the story of how once she got a letter from an early childhood educator, maybe kindergarten, maybe first grade, who tells her, you know, I'm going to create a show with this song, and I know how to dress the kids who are going to be flowers, and I know how to dress the kids who are going to be birds. But how should I dress that I person in the show? And Naomi Shemer repeats, I told her to dress her like a soldier girl. So if you wish to look at the history of the development of her awareness to sexual harassment in Israel, you will have to put your finger on this song as being probably the very first one created, yet between its creation and the time people realize that indeed it is not about protecting the nature, but rather protecting life, protecting dignity, protecting safety, many, many years had to pass. Sarah, what say you? Do we have time for a quick 1 or 2 questions, or shall I continue and leave the Q&A to the end?
I think continue, and then we'll join back at the end.
I will, because I want to take you into a whole world. We are going to look at what happens, because did I not tell you that we are talking about transitions? And I want to show you how a transition transpires from the year 1979 to the year 2020. We are talking about something very contemporary through 3 phases, and it will tell a whole story. And you may remember that at the beginning of my session, I said something about, in particular, not only the gender issue, but the Mizrahi, the Sephardi women. So let me introduce Ofra Chaza to you, a very famous Mizrahi singer who made a name for herself, who was extremely successful with singing a traditional Yemenite songs, but also very modern ones. At a certain point, at the height of her career in 1979, two actually men, and I should add Ashkenazi men, create a song. The words are by Asi Dayan from the famous Moshe Dayan family, and the music is by Tzvika Pik, who is still with us, a composer of very successful Israeli songs. And they write a song, look at the title in English and in Hebrew, the Frecha song. Shir HaFrecha. What is Frecha? Frecha is a name that many Mizrahi women traditionally had. But in Israel, it became a derogatory expression about young women or girls who are really, maybe overdressed to the Ashkenazi taste, maybe a little bit too shiny, maybe not so well educated, maybe girls that can be treated disrespectfully. Frecha. The song was proposed to Ofra Chaza, and in the beginning she refused to sing it because she said, I'm working all my career to get away from that image of Mizrahi women. Why should I? And then they persuade her, and indeed, it becomes a sort of a protest against the image of the Frecha. So we are going to listen to a few of the Hebrew words. Look at the English. I will stop when I have to, and then we will listen to Ofra Chaza sing it until we go to the next phase. So I'm doing one verse. אין לי ראש למילים ארוכות, ואתה מן מילה ארוכה שכזאת. צ'או ידידי, ודש לחייך בתקווה שתבין את הפרחה. השמש של פראג' קורעת את הים, ואני מפליגה בתוך הכפכפים. לאן שיקחו האורות אני שם, עם הלק, הליפסטיק ושאר הדאווין. Let us go to the English translation. You will be stopped, Stuart.
The Frecha song. I have no head or mind for long words, and you are such a lengthy word. Ciao, my friend, and best wishes to your life. Hopefully you will understand the Frecha. Farage's sun is scorching the sea, and I'm sailing in my flip-flops. I go where the lights are taking me, with the nail polish, the lipstick, and the rest of the show.
Okay, a few words. So first of all, this is a sort of a monologue to a guy that she feels needs to get out of her life because ill-treating, etc. But it's also a presentation of self. So who is she? Well, she admits, I don't have a head or a mind for long words, and you are one of those long words. So get out of my life. But look at the fifth line. Farage's sun is scorching the sea. This is really very typifying, if you wish. What's Farage's sun? Farage was and still is a photographer business. He himself, Mizrahi, Iraqi, very successful, a chain of photography places, and he used to have those kitschy backgrounds for family and event pictures. So they had sunset, and they probably had palms and maybe beaches. So in the cultural world of Frechot, who maybe do not travel that much, the image of a beautiful, desired place is like the sun in a Farage poster, and it's scorching the sea. And she is going where the lights take her with the lipstick and the rest of the show. Show is the best translation I found for Darwin, which is a slang word for that. Okay, let's continue, Stuart, will you?
Because I feel like dancing and being foolish, I feel like laughing and I don't fancy you. I want to during the day and I want to at night. I want to yell, I'm a frecha.
Okay, so here it is when, if you wish, the attitude changes. Because these qualities may be looked down upon, but she now owns them. I feel like dancing, I feel like being foolish, and then look at the third one, Bali, I want to, a hint at erotics, at sexuality, during the day and night, and she doesn't care anymore. She can yell, I'm frecha, okay? This is how the song is known. Let's go to the next verse.
A face that does not give a damn, wearing jeans like in the papers and permanent curly hair, posters instead of walls. I want to love like they do in the movies, a hunk that will come in colors and English. Come on, baby, the airplane is waiting. Another one of my dreams is taking off and weeping. Because I feel like dancing someday when I have time to be a grown-up, someday when the party is over, because at the end of every frecha hides a nice apartment in the projects, an exemplary husband, and 1,000 smoke directions.
Okay, 1979, okay, we are not yet at 2020. She owns her sexuality, but look at her dream world. She wants jeans just like in the papers, the newspapers. And she imagines a guy that will come like in the movies and will say, come on, baby. And you can see that the Hebrew has that expression in English as well. And another dream is flying off and weeping. Why? Because after singing the refrain for the next time, she will come and tell you in 79, yes, I do feel like dancing, but someday when I have time to be a grown-up, someday when the party is over, because at the end of every frecha hides a nice apartment in the projects, an exemplary husband, and 1,000 smoke directions. This is a pun, because when they sell apartments, you know, in Israel, they tell you that they have 1, 2, 3, 4 air directions. But in those projects and in the cultural and social group that she's part of, they are still smoking a lot. So 1,000 smoke directions rather, and not so much there. Let us listen to this original Frecha song by Ofra Chaza, Long Gone, and then we will be able to continue. Let me see if I can find it very quickly. Yeah, this is not what I want. Why? Where did my original Frecha song go? David, do you see one at yours?
Yes, Rachel, in just 1 minute I can share it.
Ah, Ofra Chaza. Okay, I got it.
Frecha בערבית.
Okay, so I will go back to it, and here we go.
היא מילה שפירושה פרגית. בעברית משום מה היא הפכה למילת גנאי על לא עוול בכפה, כי בסך הכל היא התברכה בשמחת חיים. למילים ארוכות, ואתה מין מילה ארוכה שכזאת. תשאר ידידי ודש לחייך, בתקווה שתבין את משופר עד שקורת את הים ואני מפליגה בתוך הכפכפים לאן שיקחו האורות אני שם עם הלקה הליפסטיק ושאר דאווין כי בא לי לרקוד ובא לי שטויות בא לי לצחוק ולא בא לי עליך בא לי בימים ובא לי בלילות בא לי לצעוק אני פרחה פנים שלא עושות חשבון וג'ינס בסטייל שכתוב בעיתון סלסול נצלי בשערות ופוסטרים במקום קירות רוצה לאהוב כמו בסרטים חתיך שיבוא באנגלית וצבעים Come on baby המטוס מחכה ועוד חלום שלי ממריא לו הוא בוכה בא לי לרקוד בא לי שטויות בא לי לצחוק ולא בא לי עליך בא לי בימים בא לי בלילות בא לי לצחוק אני פרחה
Okay, you're supposed to know how to say this and to yell when you do Bali litzok anifrecha. That's the proper way to do it. And we're going back to our presentation. So this is 1979. Ofra Chaza passed away, unfortunately, of AIDS in the year 2000. And now years go by. And I'm talking to you 2020 or 2019, before Corona days. Israel has around Hanukkah an event, a cultural event called the Festigal. So it's a sort of a pun on festival. It's a festival for children's and youth songs. It's a whole to-do and a whole production, and there are many, many, many performances of it around Hanukkah, and every year it has a theme. This year, because Zvika Peak, the composer of the Frecha song, was recouping from illness and they wanted to pay homage to him, they decided to include the Frecha song. But we are in 2019 or 2020, and political correctness is all over the place. So rather than do that great yell, I feel, and rather than call it the Frecha song because it's not nice to say Frecha anymore, they changed the song and they call it I Feel Like Dancing, Bali Lirkod. They totally erased the word Frecha. Rather than reclaiming it, they erased it. And when it came to the lines in the song that I feel like yelling, I'm Frecha, they go like, you know, and they clap their hands. I cannot show you this for the sake of time because I need my time for the next. A group of women creators in Tel Aviv are so mad because of this political correctness that they create the Frecha 2020 song. And that's the one we want to look at. I'm sorry, Stuart, this one I'm reading for the sake of brevity, and we're going straight with the English. Listen to her. I have an MA degree in gender studies, and I'm a hairstylist for a long time, so there is more than one woman. It's the Frechot, many Frecha songs, singers. I'm a cashier and I'm an engineer, and I'm on my way to the Knesset. Yafu's son is causing the scene, not Faraj anymore. I can travel and I can go places, and I know the difference between a poster and reality. And I'm sailing into my high heels, no flip-flops anymore for me, thank you very much. When I do not feel like it, I throw them away as well. And she walks barefoot, and who will tell her? I throw them away as well. And start a computer programming course. I feel like contributing. I feel like dreaming. I feel like having a decent old age pension. So can you see the development of the woman image and the Mizrahi? It's not only that she can aspire to any job or any education, she cares about social issues as well. I feel like leading. I feel like screwing some bolts. I feel like being Grandma Frecha. And when you'll see the song, you'll see that it's a young girl that recognizes the old grandmother. I can cook up a pumpkin kube, so this is now like new cuisine, okay? Because kube normally is not of pumpkin, but in this day and age, when we are vegan and vegetarian, even the traditional kube food becomes pumpkin kube. And of course, I'm not touching gluten, because what else will stand for the now woman? Fingernails like Chloe, and music disc like David Bowie, so totally international culture. I want a cleavage. No, says the other. I want a coif, a bonnet. I can be both traditional and the way I want to be, with a cleavage. Come on, baby. Let us get up for slichot. Can you see the switch? It's not the movie actor who takes her. She is slapping the man to go to slichot prayers, you know, at the months of Elul when we start asking for forgiveness. So she can do the Jewish thing, but also, and then to a successful women's conference. I feel like poetry. I feel like sewing. I feel like having women. Wow. And not having you. I want it in Berlin, and I want it in the suburbs. It was in the original, I wanted it at day, I wanted it at night. Now, wherever I am, I can own to who I am. Bless you, Grandma Frecha. Hi, goodbye, do not come to me in my dreams. I work hard and got all the way here. I'm taking risk and pictures of the project. I stop all those when I comment at the red light. You like to tell me who I am? A cow, gross, vulgar, loud? Yalla, get yourself on a taxi and get going. I am listening to the flower in my garden, a very Mizrahi song, so she owns up to that as well. With a surround system now. Long ago, when Simcha. Now listen, because Simcha is a Hebrew name that suggests joy. And the meaning of the word Frecha is indeed joy. So women called Frecha when they made Aliyah, and already it had a derogatory meaning, their name was changed from Frecha to Simcha. Long ago, when Simcha arrived to the factory, because that was the only thing she could aspire to do, way before we had the festigal, now she's mocking those clapping instead of saying the word Frecha. She whispered her name and said with embarrassment, you should know, Kapara, that Frecha is joy. I feel like contributing, I feel like dreaming, I feel like having a decent old age pension, I feel like leading, I feel like screwing some bolts, I feel like being Grandma Frecha. I left time, Frecha is for us to be able to listen to this song, unlike the others, to the very end, because I would like for you to see a beautiful moment at the end. So let me just give this to you. Is it good? Sound and picture?
Perfect.
יש לי תואר שני במגדר, ואני כבר שנים מעצבת שיער. אני קופאית, אני מהנדסת, ואני בדרכי אל הכנסת. השמש של יפו קורעת את הים, ואני מפליגה לתוך העקבים. כשלא מתחשק מעיפה גם אותם, ונרשמת לקורס בתכנות מחשבים. בא לי לתרום, בא לי לחלום, בא לי תנאים שיסדירו את הפנסיה. בא לי להנהיג, בא לי להבריג, בא לי להיות סבתא פרחה. מתקתקת קובדלת, בגלוטנה לא נוגעת, ציפורניים על הקלואי, ותקליטים של דיוויד בואי. רוצה מחשוף, רוצה שביס, רוצה להיות מפקדת בסיס. Come on baby, בוא נקום לסליחות, ואחר כך לכנס נשים מצליחות. בא לי שירה, בא לי צירה, בא לי נשים ולא בא לי עליך. בא לי בברלין, בא לי בקריות, כפרה עלי סבתא פרחה. היי שלום, אל תבוא לי בחלום, עברתי, גשדרתי והגעתי עד הלום. לוקחת סיכונים, מצלמת שיכונים, ואת כל המסמנים עוצרת באדום. איך אתה אוהב להגיד לי מי אני? בהמה גסה, וולגרית קולנית, יאללה תתקפל ותזמין לך מונית. אני שומעת בסראונד את הפרח בגני. פעם כששמחה הגיע למפעל, פעם עוד לפני הפסטיגל, היא לחשה לי את שמה ואמרה אז במבוכה, רק תדעי כפרה שפרחה זאת שמחה. בא לי לתרום, בא לי לחלום, בא לי תנאים שיסדירו את הפנסיה. בא לי להנהיג, בא לי להבריג, בא לי להיות סבתא פרחה.
פרחה, שם יפה מאוד, כן.
Okay, I think you agree that Frecha is a very, very beautiful name, as Grandma Frecha told us. And now, to conclude, I'd like to thank you, Toda Rabba, for being in these two sessions with me, and wishing all of us for next year, hopefully, this is not what I wanted. Next year in Jerusalem and maybe in Yafo as well. When you see the picture of Yafo with the green circle, it circles around the roof of the house where I live, where you are more than welcome if you happen to visit Yafo. Thank you very much. And I think we do have a few minutes, don't we, Sarah, to take a question or two. You will be the judge of that. And thank you, Stuart, for the reading.
We do have a few minutes. Many of the questions that have come in this period are really about the social impact of these songs. So on the negative side, do you believe that the Dinah song really served to undermine women in the army, and that the No song perpetuated rape culture in Israel? And also on the positive side, whether students in Israel learn any of these songs and have conversations like we're having around gender and consent in their schools.
Yes. I cannot judge Dinah Barzilai because my recollections of it is from the time I thought it was fun too. And I belong to the generation when women were treated like that and objectified. And it was part of it. I know that a lot of conversation is still vibrant around the two other songs. So when you say know what you mean, oftentimes people quote it in, the reverse. When I say no, I mean no. And also the nature protection walls as the need to bring to the forefront issues of sexual harassment. Not that they are studied in school, but they are conversation pieces. They'll be quoted, that will come up in journalist articles, etc. And the recent one, the Frecha 2020, it became so popular and went so viral. And people, I think, really enjoy that response, not so much to the original Frecha song, which belongs to the 70s, but rather to this group of women who, for the sake of political correctness, did not mention the word, which all it means is joy, and a totally legitimate name that became through slang so derogatory. So this is why I wanted you to say the end where Frecha says it's a beautiful name, Yeah.
So I'm getting flooded by comments that mostly just are expressing gratitude to you, and in particular for that last song, which many people say moved them to tears. It was so powerful.
It does me still, and I've seen it like 20 times.
So we have 2 more minutes. So rather than asking, we have so many wonderful questions coming in that we won't have time to get to. Thank you everybody for your questions. Rachel, instead I'll just ask you, what's your takeaway, having gone through these many decades with this music and poetry, we're standing in 2020, like what's the message that you would take away?
My take is that it took me to where I am, where I want to teach about Israeli society through its poetry and songs, because I believe that's an extremely insightful way to glean insights, to better understand, to better know things that are not part of Hasbara and things that are not part of the regular mainstream Israel discourse. Also, let me use a Rachel Korazim cliche. Having dealt with Israel education so many years of my career, I became tired of people talking about Israel and explaining Israel. So my motto had become, rather than talk about, let Israeli authentic voices talk to you. Listen to the stuff that Israelis create, not those who explain them. And try to go deep with that. I admire the change. I admire the courage of critique. Let me do a promo for my next week when I will present Israeli poetry as social criticism. I think it's a beautiful phenomenon. And although it may present Israel oftentimes as having, wow, believe it or not, things that are far from perfect, things that we need to set right, well, what should I be more proud of than of my culture that brings this to the forefront and says it loud and clear? And the Frecha 2020 is my best example for that.